our goal is to learn or remember that characters have more than one trail.
Great, very good. So our job as
Trait.
readers is to recognize that we can't just say this character is funny. That's not the only thing we know about them, right? If you think about all that work we did with Rob and Sistine earlier in the year with the Tiger Rising, we didn't just say Rob was shy, right? We talked about how he was shy and he was lonely and he was kind and he was caring. So we have to recognize that characters show more than one trait and that those traits might show up at different parts of the story. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. All right. Or more about that today. Sorry, not tomorrow. I said tomorrow. So when it comes to characters, we have to think about what they say and what they do. Okay. So I have this little section from the story Fox where Magpie says, I will never again be able to fly. She whispers, I know, says Dog. He is silent for a moment and then he says, I am blind in one eye, but that life is still good. An eye is nothing, says Magpie. How would you feel if you couldn't run? So when we look at the main character Magpie, the bird, what do we kind of see? What is Magpie kind of acting like early in that story? Like as a character, how does Magpie act, Clay?
Definitely sad and very worried.
It seems kind of like sad and gloomy. All right. Is there another thing we could use to describe Magpie at the beginning of the story besides saying that she's sad and she's gloomy? Somebody besides Ania. I've been calling on Ania and Clay all day. Like, think about that. If she's saying those kinds of things to Dog, I'm going to read it again. I will never again be able to fly. I know, says Dog. He is silent for a moment. Then he says, I am blind in one eye, but life is still good. An eye is nothing, said Magpie. How would you feel if you couldn't run? So, Marvin, what is she acting like right now?
Kind of like selfish because she's thinking of herself.
Yeah, she's kind of selfish. She's only thinking about how she feels. She doesn't consider how Dog might feel about not having an eye. I might say she's a little negative, right? Like she's very like she's looking on the bad side of things the whole time. She's very negative when we meet her at the beginning, right? So we have to study patterns and notice the difference between feeling and traits. Okay, so kind of Clay at the beginning, Clay said she's sad. That is a feeling, right? A feeling is something you feel one time or it could change. You don't always feel sad. That could change. Gloomy might mean that there's someone who seems sad a lot, right? Like more often than not, they seem sad or upset. So gloomy would be a trait because that's how they act most of the time. Sad would be a feeling, right? So at the beginning, I put that Magpie's words and attitude at the beginning show that her trait is kind of angry bitterness, right? She's very angry. She's rude. She comes across as very bitter. That would be more of a trait than an emotion or a feeling. Sad or upset is a feeling. So we have to focus hard on studying and knowing the difference between this is the way the character feels right now, and this is a pattern we see. This character is like this and acts like this a lot throughout the whole story. So we're going to look at another section with Magpie, and we're going to see if she has the same attitude. So this is later in the story. It said again, Magpie says, I will never leave Dog. I am his missing eye, and he is my wings. But later that day, the dog runs through the scrub, and Magpie on his back thinks, this is nothing like flying. Nothing. And when at dawn, Fox whispers to her for the third time, she whispers back, I am ready. So are we seeing a possible new trait for Magpie later on in the story?
Yes.
Yeah, what is something we could use to describe Magpie kind of later in the story when she says like to Fox, she whispers, I'm ready. And she's kind of going behind Dog's back. Ania?
She's kind of like she doesn't want to go on Fox's side, but she wants to she wants him Fox to run since Dog can because he has a blind eye, and Fox says he's the fastest runner. So she's gonna go on his side and just go go behind dog's back.
Yeah. So she's kind of going behind his back. She's kind of being sneaky, right? So we could say later, maybe a trait that appears is that Magpie is being sneaky. We could also say that maybe that same negative bitterness that we saw in the beginning, we're still seeing it, right? What does she say that still shows she's kind of got that negative bitterness? I'm going to wait for somebody who I've not heard from to, what does Magpie say that still shows she's kind of that negative bitterness? I've heard a lot from Clay and Ania. I need somebody else to step up, and I've heard from Marvin already this lesson. Christian.
She whispered back, "I am ready."
Yeah, so that's the sneaky part behind the back, right? That's not necessarily negative yet, right? But there is something that she says that shows she's still negative when she's riding on dog. What does she say riding on dog that shows she's being negative? Or is it she's acting like bitter? So I'll wait until somebody steps up besides those same three people and says what she says. Look at that and look at what she says that shows she's negative or she's angry or bitter. I've heard from those same three people a lot. I need to hear somebody else. Cynthia.
She says this is nothing like flying when she's on dog's back.
Yeah, she says this is nothing like flying, right? So she's being negative and bitter, but we also see now that she can also be kind of sneaky. So we could describe her in more than one way. So when we are looking at character traits, here's what we need to do to really make sure that we are paying close attention, right? We need to stop at the beginning and think about what does the character already show us? What can we already say about the character when we meet them for the first time? Then we're going to continue reading. And we're going to look for places in the text where another trait appears. We might be able to say something else about the character. We're going to look to try to be able to describe our character in more than one way. So we're going to look and we're going to practice with Fox. And we're going to talk about how he's different at the beginning and how he's different at the end. So I'm going to pull up the first time we see Fox, okay? It says, after the rains, when saplings are springing up everywhere, a fox comes into the bush. Fox with his haunted eyes and rich red coat. He flickers through the trees like a tongue of fire, and Magpie begins to tremble. But Dog says, welcome, we can offer you food and shelter. Thank you, says Fox. I saw you this morning, and you looked extraordinary when you were running. Dog beams. In the evenings when the air is creamy with blossoms, Dog and Magpie relax in the mouth of the cave. Now and again, Fox joins in the conversation, right? So what could we say about Fox at the beginning when we first see him? He tells Dog, oh, you look extraordinary. He hangs out with them and he has conversations with them. How does he kind of seem at the very beginning when we first see him? Marvin?
Nice.
Yeah, he seems kind of nice and friendly, right? Like he wants to have discussions. He gives them compliments. But that whole time, Magpie's noticing, it says she shakes away. She can feel Fox staring at her burnt wing. She can feel him watching her. So we notice that Fox seems both kind of scary and friendly at the same time. Then late in the book, he's running with Magpie on his back. And he says he stops, scarcely panting. There is silence between them. Neither moves or speaks. Then Fox shakes Magpie off his back as he would a flea and pads away. He turns and looks at Magpie and says, Now you and dog will know what it is like to truly be alone. Then he is gone, right? So at the beginning of the story, he seems friendly and kind and like he wants to have talk to them. What does he look like at the end of the story? How does he treat them at the end of the story? Corbin.
Like a little mean, or just like getting
Yeah,
like mad.
he's really, he's almost, you could even say evil, right? So we need to recognize that sometimes our opinions of characters and traits can change throughout the entire story. All right. And that's what you're going to focus on today. All right. So I'm going to pull up our Canvas assignment, but your job today is you're going to go back and everybody should have a book. And Denise, if you don't have one, you're reading on Epic, you can get on Epic. The class code is on our reading page, or you can do Literacy Footprints and the code is on there. But you're going to read a book, the book you started reading or the book you said you were going to read, about a fictional book with a character, and you are going to take notes and talk about some of the traits that you see popping up with your character. All right. So you need to set it up in your notebook like I did right here. This is on Canvas too. It says book title. You're going to read and you're going to write down notes about your characters. Okay. So if you go to Wednesday and you click on reading, character traits is your assignment right here. All right. And when you click on it, it says the same thing here. It says possible sentence starters. At the beginning, I notice my character is blank, or character traits my character showing are blank. Another trait that emerged during the story, there's sentence starters here. This is a graded assignment. I know we're not coming back in person until the 19th, but these assignments before that are being graded. Okay. So it's your job to get on here. You can either write things down in your notebook and take a picture or a video, but that needs to be clear. We need to be able to read it. Or you can type in as a text entry what you did. Okay. So that's your job on your own. You're going to read your book and take notes. If you go with Mrs. Fleischer, you're going to go now to join her Zoom. Denise, you stay with me for reading. Okay. You don't go to Mrs. Fleischer for reading, just for math. So Dunya, Alejandro, Oscar, and Jonathan, you are going to go join Mrs. Fleischer for reading. If she's not on right away, she will let you in soon. So just wait in her waiting room until she lets you in, okay? So Dunya, go to Mrs. Fleischer's Zoom. Oscar, go to Mrs. Fleischer's Zoom. Jonathan, go to Mrs. Fleischer's Zoom. And Alejandro, go to Mrs. Fleischer's Zoom. Everyone else in here, I am going to do FMPs with you, okay? So I'm going to take people into my breakout room to do their FMP test. You should stay in the main room and work on your assignment with your cameras on. I will come back in and check on you and be checking your assignments while people are doing their FMPs, okay? Yes, Cynthia.
I finished my book.
Okay, you finished your book. You can look for a new book, okay? Or you could go back to that same book and take notes about the characters. It's up to you. But you need to be reading a fiction book on Epic or on Literacy Footprint. And then you need to take notes, write down what you're noticing about the characters, and then submit it. Y'all, I'm not going to give you full points if you write down 3 words. It should be complete sentences and actual notes like 4th graders, all right? Christian, you're going to come to the breakout room with me, and we're going to do your FMP first, okay? So I'm going to send you an invite to the breakout room here in just a second. At this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. The rest of you should be working on the assignment. You have 1 whole hour. If you finish notes and reading and you think, oh, this is good, you can go ahead and do your skill of the day or do Lexia, okay? But you need to make sure the assignment gets turned in.
We could do skill